Tom, are you ready back there? I am ready. Oh. Okay, I'll call the meeting of the Common Council for Tuesday, January 25th to order. This is a regular meeting. I see everyone is present. Mr. Fire is joining us via Zoom. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C is the public comment period. At this time, the council president will recognize members of the public who have indicated a desire to address the council. Upon recognition by the council president, persons may address the council, first stating their name and address. The council may act on emergency matters introduced by members of the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak tonight? Any members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to item D, approval of the minutes of the January 11th, 2022 council meeting. We have a motion for Mr. Hendler. Okay, a motion to approve for Mr. Hendler, a second by Mr. Rosendich. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Item E is staff updates. Number one is a presentation of a retirement plaque to retired Fire Chief Scott Owen, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you. It's been a month already, hasn't it? Something like that, yeah. Close to it. It occurs to me when I was looking at the dates on this plaque that I was still living in Minnesota when Scott began his distinguished career with the Marshfield Fire Department. And what a great job he did over a quarter century. It makes it sound like he spent a lot of time, because he did, serving this community, serving the residents, serving the surrounding towns with the service that we provide, and doing just such a high quality job, being a leader, committed to public service in the most outstanding way. And I worked with you for 11 of those 25 years, and I can honestly say it was a great pleasure, no matter what we were talking about, whether it was the tough things like budgets or some of the issues that came up, but you were always a man of integrity and honesty, and I greatly appreciated working with you. So it is my pleasure to stop talking at this point and read the reason why we're here. This is presented to Scott Owen in recognition of over 25 years of service to the city of Marshfield, July 8th of 1996 to December 31st of 2021. Awesome job in every sense. Scott, congratulations.
Thank you, Steve.
I'd be very short. Scott, do you have anything you want to say?
So, thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone. I can honestly say, my last day in office was December 17th. That was a very bittersweet day for me. It was a very tough day. But I can honestly say in the past month and a half that I've been off, I highly recommend retirement to anybody who's looking at it. It's nice not having to worry about it, worry about anything. You don't really know what day of the week it is most days, and that's okay, because I really have no place to be unless I have a doctor's appointment or my wife does, and then we'll figure that out. But other than that, I really did enjoy my time. I'm not going to stay up here real long. I said everything I needed to at my final council meeting. Thanks to everybody. I've really, truly enjoyed working with each and every one of you, even you, Ed, during the budget I did. And one thing to keep in mind is there is the need for a second fire station yet. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind for the future. So anyway, thanks to Pete, who's the interim chief right now, doing a great job. DC Bacus is here. They were my sounding boards on a lot of things, and they were always there when times were tough. And of course, Lori. Lori's not here, but Lori was my rock. So with that, thank you very much. And I'm not staying for the rest of the meeting because I don't have to. So thank you again.
Thank you for your service, Scott. Item number 2 under staff updates is an introduction of Nikki Anderson, the event and programming coordinator, and Sarah Storant, Zoo manager, introduced by Justin Casperson.
Thank you and good evening. I want to first introduce Nikki Anderson. She started her new position as the event and program coordinator with the Parks and Recreation Department on Monday, January 3rd. Nikki will be responsible for program development, marketing, and event planning at Wenzel Family Plaza, along with other park and community locations. She also will advance plans and strategies designed by the Economic Development Board and visit Marshfield that will foster business growth through events, programs, and activities, and help the city and its partners to promote economic development in our community. Nikki is joining us from Main Street, where she worked as the Wenzel Family Plaza Director. Nikki also worked for Rail Transport as a claims administrator and with Completion Industrial Minerals as an administrator. Nikki holds a bachelor's degree in communications and media studies from the University of Minnesota, and Nikki will report directly to Amanda Bruce, our recreation manager. So you know, Nikki's to my left, Sarah's to my right. Sarah Strong started her new position as zoo manager with the Parks and Recreation Department on January 10th. Sarah will serve as the curator of the Wildwood Zoo, ensuring the animal collection is maintained to provide excellent viewing and educational opportunities. She will also develop animal husbandry programs, supervise seasonal staff and part-time staff, perform routine maintenance, and communicate with zoo guests. Sarah is not new to the city. She has served as a zoo educator since 2017. Sarah completed her internship with Raptor Rehabilitation and Education Group in Anago before joining us, and she holds a bachelor's degree in biology from UW River Falls, and she'll be reporting directly to Ben Steinbach. So I'd like to welcome Sarah and Nikki.
Welcome to both of you. Item number 3 under staff updates is an announcement of the West 2nd Street redevelopment plan public meeting for Thursday, February 3rd at 6 p.m. Presented by Josh Miller, even though I've just given it away.
You've given a spoiler away, but yeah, basically, obviously, we had a nice presentation at a previous meeting tonight, and you could see what we can do with the city garage site, and very excited to show what we can do with the 2nd Street corridor if and when the city garage is relocated. So in order to get some good information, we've been meeting with an ad hoc committee to talk about those things with a consultant, and this is another opportunity to get public input on the potential uses, the themes, reuse and revitalization opportunities for this corridor. So we'd like to invite the council, obviously, and then the general public to this meeting. It'll be held on Thursday, February 3rd at 6 o'clock in the Chestnut Center in the upper reception area. So we look forward to seeing a great turnout and getting a lot of good feedback to continue our planning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Item F is council president's comments. We have an employee recognition. Sandra Hill at the library has been here for 25 years, starting on 1/28 of 1997. Congratulations to her. That's all I have for comments tonight. Are there any council comments? Mr. Wagner.
I don't usually write down stuff to say that I want to say at the council meeting, but I think this is sort of important and I want to be very careful with my words. You know, recently, and just as recently as 2 weeks ago, I guess, the Common Council has come under criticism for denying the council president's nominees for membership on the Fire and Police Commission. The fact that these nominees were turned down without any discussion, and also because there is no law that requires members of the council to explain their vote, only leads to speculation and rumor. We need to put that process in context, and that's what I'd like to do tonight. Understand this, I'm speaking only for myself, and I won't imply or suggest that my motivations were instigated by my colleagues or even used to influence their votes for that matter. Fire and police commissions themselves have been required in every city with a population of more than 4,000 since 1933. No mayor or council may unilaterally disband it. They were instituted to eliminate corruption in fire and police departments that had become rampant all the way back since the 1800s and all the way into the 1920s. The intent was to separate commissions from the politics of local government and end cronyism, favoritism, and nepotism, bribery, deal-making, and the hiring and firing and promotion and demotion of departmental personnel. If you want to understand the need for all this, all you really need to do is mention the names Boss Tweed, Huey Long, Richard Daley, and countless other corrupt mayors who used public service officers to procure favors and punish opponents in return for jobs, union favors, campaign contributions, endorsements from the unions, and just pure graft. In structuring the commissions, the statutes in Wisconsin built a wall between the Common Council, the mayor, and local politics in general to keep those commissioners from becoming tools, or worse yet, pawns of local elected officials. The state statutes and case laws show that the independence of commissions, and more specifically, the Fire and Police Commission, are jealously guarded and enforced, while at the same time, there is a built-in tension between the mayor and the Common Council. And the reason for that is the mayor is given the exclusive authority to nominate, but the council must confirm. When I discussed this built-in contradiction in the structure with our city attorney, I complained to him that the system was broken. He, on the other hand, suggested that the system was working exactly the way it is supposed to operate. At the time, I disagreed. But after thinking about that for a while, I decided he was right. But the difficulty is that neither the council nor the nominating authorities seem to understand what our respective roles in the process actually need to be. In my opinion, it's the duty of the mayor or his representative to nominate persons who will act independently of local politics, who have no allegiance to either the mayor or the council, no allegiance to unions due to their contributions or endorsements, have no prior association with either fire or police departments, although we did allow a special exception to that in the very recent memory. They need to have no agenda relating to specific personnel or policies and no financial interest that they might profit from that nomination. In other words, the nominating officer must make nominations which preserve the statutory independence of the Fire and Police Commission. It is his or her duty to uphold the statutes as he or she is pledged to do. It is not that the mayor can nominate his people to influence the commission. It's to uphold the statutes, to give a controlling majority to a mayor who openly interferes with the business of the commission, would turn the commission into a willing tool of that mayor, open the door for corruption, and permanently negate the purpose and intent of the creation of independent commissions. The duty of the council, then, is to examine the nominee and determine if the nominee is indeed independent of any constraints in their ability to do what is best for the fire and police departments, as well as for the city as a whole. In my opinion, the nominees so far have not met those expectations. We have been presented with a number of persons who are either closely or tangentially involved with the former mayor's desire to shake up the commission, as he put it, or to aid the union in continuance of their failed, costly attempts to end the fit for duty test and the divisive and destructive things that took place in relation to that. I urge the nominating authority to be more judicious in selection of the nominees and to take the time to examine the choices in the terms I've described. The council, likewise, should also examine the nominees in that same context to assure that those confirmed will be independent, dedicated, public-spirited members of the Fire and Police Commission. And with that, I thank you.
Are there any further council comments? Well, I will make a comment in my role as a city council member rather than council president. I assure you that the people who have been put forth by me have come from a pool of persons who expressed their desire to serve the city of Marshfield. I examined the pool of persons, and in each occasion, I picked the person who I feel is most qualified and most desirous to serve the city of Marshfield on the Police and Fire Commission, regardless of their backgrounds or any perceived beliefs that they may have. And I take somewhat offense to what Mr. Wagner has said here to imply that there's anything else going on here, that I am selecting people based on some political motivation. I assure you that is not the case. Mr. Hindler.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Council President. We all know the difficulties that the police department has gone through in the past year. And what I think is at stake here is a strong fire and police commission. And in my case, I will do my best to see that happen. And if I have to stand my ground, as I did in the past 4 times, I'll do so. And I'm not going to have that honesty questioned, and I won't resort to any retaliation, but I will continue doing my job, whether somebody likes it or not. We need a strong commission to put that commission back in business doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we cannot do it with candidates that, in my opinion, do not allow that to happen. Thank you.
Or any other council comment? Item H is reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Are there any reports tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which you have before you. I'll entertain a motion to approve, place on file. Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Wagner and a second from Mr. Butke. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, please vote.
Yeah.
And that motion carries. There were no items removed from the consent agenda, so we'll move on to item K, which is a request to approve budget resolution number 1-2022, transferring $23,500 from the city administrator contingency account to the public facilities capital outlay buildings account for the replacement of a boiler at City Hall, presented by Dan Knecht, City Engineer, or Director of Public Works. All right,
Thank you.
demoted you.
Thank you. I think we've talked about this before, but we have 2 boilers here in City Hall. One of the boilers has developed a leak back in 2020, and we've been able to kind of piece it together and repair the leak, but we're not confident how long that will last. We did put a project in the CIP, in last year's approved CIP, to replace this boiler in 2022. As we balanced that CIP process, the decision was made to remove it from the CIP and see if we could purchase that boiler in 2021. You'll recall that back in December, the council approved a resolution to carry forward unused contingency funds in the amount of $23,500 into 2022 for this purpose. So now it is necessary to add that to the 2022 budget, and this budget resolution will do that. So the recommendation is to approve budget resolution 01-2022, which would transfer $23,500 into the Public Facilities Capital Projects Fund. This action has been recommended by the Finance, Budget, and Personnel.
Mr. Witzel, you have a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, and a second from Mr. Butke. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote.
Yeah.
And that motion carries.
Thank you.
Item L is the first reading of ordinance number 1468, amending chapter 13.96, parent 2G, and chapter 1396, paragraph 5 of the Marshfield Municipal Code Special Assessments, presented by Tom Turchie, City Engineer.
Thank you. When we design streets and pavement structures in the city of Marshall, we design them utilizing the anticipated traffic volumes, the classification of the roadway, and their heavy truck use for the service life of the entire roadway. Higher classifications, roadways required strengthened pavement structures. Therefore, and these increased pavement structures provide little benefit to a typical residential property owner. So what we're proposing is to amend the municipal code to further redefine what is accessible to a residential property, and those items that are specifically accessible versus having a residential property pay for a roadway that's designed for heavy truck routes. So in section 1396 2G, we're looking at changing the code to read, in the improvement of a street open to traffic, it is determined that the maximum pavement construction that can be necessary to serve the adjacent abutting property owner zoned for residential use is asphalt pavement with curbs 28 feet face to face and a 3.5-inch thick pavement at 2 layers, 9 inches of crushed aggregate base course, and the resulting excavation associated with the asphalt and crushed aggregate base course. And where pavements then are constructed in advance of that or have different pavement structures, we would prorate it down to that residential construction section. The second part of this is looking at where we convert a street from ditch street, like we're doing on East 17th right now, where we're going from a ditch street to curb and gutter. By policy, we put sidewalk in on both sides of the street. This new sidewalk per current code is assessed 100% to the adjacent property owners, and this cost can get pretty substantial. New sidewalks can provide a benefit to those adjacent properties, but they also provide a benefit to the general public as well. And so what I'm proposing with this amendment is that the municipal code help reduce the financial burden to these property owners by dividing up the assessment a little bit more for these. So in the instance where we have sidewalk construction, the assessment for new construction of sidewalk where sidewalk does not currently exist shall be assessed 50% of the cost of construction plus 10% for engineering and administration and overhead to the adjacent property owner. Replacement of or repair of public sidewalk done in conjunction with street improvement projects are still assessed at 100% the total cost of construction. And when we are actually doing a larger project like what we did on Cleveland a couple years ago, where they had sidewalk already. Most of it was in pretty good shape, but we had to take it out to meet ADA guidelines and to meet grades of the different yards and the fact that we converted it from a ditch street to a curb and gutter. We only assess for the pieces that don't meet our current sidewalk maintenance program. Therefore, the homeowners aren't penalized on those types of projects. So there is no action to be taken tonight on ordinance 1468. But the final action will take place at the next reading on February 8th, 2022 at the council meeting. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Witzel?
Thank you. Just a clarification here. So new construction, we're reducing the burden on the property owner.
Yes.
Replacement and repair of existing, I didn't see the word existing in there, but existing is going to be the 100%.
Yes.
What about the section of sidewalk that the city designs and completes for the ADA compliant access to the sidewalk? I'm thinking the last 2 feet of a section of sidewalk. I think most property owners know my sidewalk's bad, I replace it, but I don't think that they have the ability, or I think the city kind of says, we'll take care of that. Is that assessed?
No, that's a good question. When we do the curb ramps associated with any sidewalk that connects to a street, that is 100% city cost. It's always been 100% city cost. If we have to make adjustments to that in order to let's take, for example, if we're doing a overlay project where we're putting in a 2-inch overlay, we may then take any curb ramps that we're working with, make them ADA compliant, and any adjacent sidewalk that ties that corner ramp in is 100% city cost.
So if you do have to go into that property owner's sidewalk, you'll fix it for free?
Yes, and that falls into the ordinance where we have to change it for grade or for ADA compliance, then the city picks up that cost.
That's all I had, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Tom? Thanks, Tom.
All right, thank you.
Item M is a request to adopt a joint statement with other community groups on the city of Marshfield being a welcoming community. Introduced by Steve Barg, City Administrator, and presented by Scott Larson from Mackey and Michelle Bornke from UWSP Marshfield.
Thank you, Council President. 2 months ago, when this first came up, I apologize. I really didn't do a good service to either people like Michelle and Scott and their organizations or to the council. I was participating remotely while I was on vacation, and I presented it. I kind of walked through it, but there were some good questions raised by council, and I really wasn't fully prepared to answer those questions, like how would the statement be used, what would the benefits be, and maybe some of the history, the genesis for why it was brought together the way it is. So at that point, it was, I think it might have been Councilmember Fisher, but somebody raised the idea, when this comes back, why don't we have the principals? Why don't we have the people who are moving the initiative forward be here to be able to address that, maybe give a little bit more background and answer the questions that council has about the welcoming statement, as I call it, that's being proposed. I would also say that beyond Mackey and UWSP Marshfield campus, that the clinic is supportive of this initiative. Pat Bohr, the Chief Administrative Officer, gave me a letter by email late this afternoon, which I put on your desks for tonight's meeting, indicating their support of what's being proposed. So without any further comments from me, I'm going to ask Michelle Bornke from UWSP Marshfield campus and Scott Larson from Mackey to come and address the council and maybe give some background and address the kind of questions that you might have.
Good evening. Thank you, Steve. Likewise, I was present the first time the council was considering this statement, and certainly understand the questions that came up from that evening and looking at this. And since the chamber is responsible for creating this statement, let me go ahead and talk about what the rationale was behind the chamber addressing this issue and coming up with a statement such as this. As was noted that evening, this is not about correcting a community issue or a problem. Rather, it's about taking a proactive approach to promote a positive attribute of the community. Just as we, as a community, promote economic development incentives, we have to actively promote the attractiveness of the community for talent, attraction, and retention. So with that, I want to go through, and there's a great deal of data that's been produced by business organizations throughout the state, of which Mackey is a participant in. And I just want to go through and explain some of these data points to you so it helps to better understand the rationale behind the business community thinking a statement like this serves a very positive approach. Upon launching the Future Wisconsin Project, which was a WMC Foundation initiative working with state governments, the university systems, the technical college systems, and business, a national survey was conducted to see how people outside the state of Wisconsin and Wisconsinites perceive the state. Unfortunately, out-of-state residents best recognize the state for its cheese, cold weather, and the Green Bay Packers. When asked about other perceptions they had about the state, people in and out of Wisconsin had a negative view about the job opportunities available here. As this initiative has detailed, that perception does not match reality, which highlights the needs for better public relations efforts and branding for Wisconsin's top industries. As recently as 2021, a WMC survey of 266 businesses that make up a representative sample of its membership found that nearly 9 in 10 businesses, 86%, were struggling to hire workers. In the same survey, 72% of employers listed the labor shortage as the top public policy issue facing Wisconsin. To put a fine point on this issue, in December of 2021, the Job Center of Wisconsin listed roughly 130,000 jobs available on its website. However, fewer than 50,000 people were actively looking for jobs. Wisconsin's demographics don't paint a good picture for the future either. No matter the industry or geographic location, the top issue for businesses right now and long into the future is workforce. To grow the economy, Wisconsin must grow its workforce. This must be tackled in three ways: attraction, retention, and expansion. Based on the latest data, Wisconsin is not growing its population fast enough to keep up with the growing economy. According to 2020 U.S. Census data, Wisconsin's population is growing slower than a national average. Birth rates are declining and the state's population is not getting any younger. From 2010 to 2020, Wisconsin grew its population by 3.6%. Unfortunately, that lags the national average of 7.4%. This was the smallest amount of growth since the 1980s. This spells an even more troubling future for many counties in Wisconsin. While the state as a whole did grow its population from 2010 to 2020, 21 of the state's 72 counties actually saw their populations decline. Wood County was one of those 21 counties. Even though the entire country is experiencing slower birth rates, states like Wisconsin are especially impacted because the population is not growing quickly in other ways. This means the population is getting older, and in the last 10 years, the number of children living in Wisconsin dropped by 4%. If fewer children live in Wisconsin today, that means fewer adults will live in Wisconsin over the next couple of decades. A troubling statistic for businesses worried about worker shortage that already exists. Without attracting more people to Wisconsin via in-migration, the labor challenges will not only get worse. Now, there is some good news. More people had moved into the state than had moved out, a difference from the 1980s. The bad news is, though, that Wisconsin birth rates have slowed. This is a challenge facing the entire country. And in 2020, birth rates dropped roughly 4% year over year, and the fertility rate fell to 1.6, a record low. Total births were the lowest since 1979. Based upon U.S. Census data, Wood County's population is 94.7% white. The next largest group is Hispanic at 3.2%. This drives the point to promote a welcoming and diverse population. As the state's population ages, talent attraction must be a focus. That means bringing people in from other states and other countries. Retention is necessary as well. Wisconsin cities, towns, and this includes Marshfield, is full of opportunities for young people, but the state and community leaders must do a better job of making them aware of these prospects. That's why statewide initiatives such as the Future Wisconsin Project and the Central Wisconsin Regional Initiative called Central to Success are being supported by the region's chambers of commerce and businesses to change the current workforce trends and promote the state of Wisconsin, Central Wisconsin, and the Marshfield area to attract individuals and families of all backgrounds to consider living and working in our community. Again, I hope these data points add some light to the reason why having a statement is such an important factor, and why the business community has such an issue with making sure that these are something that is well known. We have to promote ourselves. It's not trying to correct a negative. This is trying to promote a positive attribute that we do have here in Marshfield. This is a welcoming community, and we want to make sure that everybody is aware of that, and we market to that. This would now make for a good transition as to Michelle Bornke to talk about some of the other aspects and attributes that we are developing, along with not just a statement, but action points that we want to focus on to help promote the community as a whole. Michelle?
Thank you, everyone, for letting me be here. And just a couple things is the how. If you were to help us with this statement and moving forward with it, I just want to say, when I came here, 33 years ago, I really honestly was only going to be here for a couple years and then move on. Here I am, 33 years later. And there's a lot of reasons why, and I'm sure you all have that same kind of story. And not just our institution, but other educational institutions, our businesses, our nonprofits, we're all struggling to get members or employees. And one of the first things they may say to us is, tell us about your community. What is your culture? What do you like? And our chancellor at UW-Stevens Point fully recognizes this, and it is one of our imperatives in our strategic plans is to promote diversity, inclusion, and equity. And one of the things, and it is your building, that we're doing an opening celebration, and this is one of the ways we would use the welcoming statement is on your desk or in front of you right now, is that we're having a grand opening celebration for the Center for Inclusive Excellence. And it is to promote our community and a welcoming environment for those people that are of diverse populations, because when they come here, they're looking for the cultural fair. They're looking for support groups. They're looking for English as a second language. They're looking for those resources in some place they can feel at home. And we would really love, actually, we went ahead and put the statement on the wall already, but we really want to be able to say that our campus endorses this, our community, our businesses, our city common council, and everybody, because we do support all of the people that come here. And I actually have an example. Sometimes you want to have the real human side of it. We just hired someone, she just started a few months ago, and she was from Connecticut, and she actually has children that they adopted that are from Mexico, and that was one of her questions. And being from education, she's like, I didn't see it on your website. She was meaning ours at UW-Stevens Point at Marshfield. And I felt a little bit ashamed, like, what do you mean you didn't see it? We have the cultural fair. Actually, that's not on our website. And so that was evidence that we are welcoming, but she wanted to know more. Like, tell me how you support a family like mine who does have diversity within itself. And we're coming here from Connecticut, and we want to know more about your community. And she researched Wood County, she did her background checks on the city, and she looked at everything, and she already knew the 3% Hispanic population. She knew that Arcadia has 80% of their students are Hispanic. She actually knew more than I did. She fully speaks Spanish, and actually today we had a family come into the UW-Stevens Point campus, and they spoke no English. And I was so happy to have her there as a resource, and she talked to them, and we sent them over to Midstate because the young man wants to get his GED, but he speaks no English. And we invited him back, and we're connecting, and we want to be that welcoming piece that connects them to the community. So this is just one part of it, and we would have that statement in our Solution Center, and we would have it in our Center for Inclusive Excellence. We'd put it on our website, and I think other businesses probably have the same stories as us, but they too would feel confident when they put it out there. It's not just us saying it, because a university is supposed to say that, right? But I think when the city backs it, especially in our facility, it really means a lot. So I hope you really think about this and hopefully join us in being something we already are. I'm proof. I've been here for 33 years, so I think that says a lot. So thank you for welcoming myself and my family 33 years ago, unless you decide to kick me out. So.
Both Michelle and I would be happy to take any questions if council has any further discussions or questions as relates to this matter.
The recommended action is at the discretion of the council. Mr. Butke.
I have no doubt, Michelle, I've been at the University, Stevens Point, Marshfield. It is a welcoming place. But people know in the community, and when you're an old guy like me, you go to coffee a lot. People know the places that are not. Words don't do it. Action does. And that's why you're successful there. I'm not saying Mackey isn't. I'm just making a statement there.
if we gotta educate Marshfield people to be friendly and open to these things. You guys gave a great presentation, but I cannot go for just words. That means nothing. You heard the phrase, action speaks louder than words. And people are gonna know if they go to a place, well, we're a welcoming community and they have a bad issue, they're not friendly. Guess what? Somebody's gonna have to talk me into this because it's a pipe dream right now for places that aren't friendly.
That's a great point, Tom, and we're in complete agreement with that. I mean, the statement is only that. It's just the starting point. Part of the rationale and why the chamber reached out to the university was because we want a resource center, we want a resource library developed so that we have action points to back up the statement. And so that really is the impetus behind working with Michelle and the campus, was to develop this resource center so that there is some action tied to it, and it isn't just words. Because you're right, and we look at it too, and it's like, no, words are words. It's symbolism over substance. Well, we want substance. So this is a start of having that. We're also, there's a number of employers. I know the Marshfield Clinic Health System is deeply involved in this process. They've brought on new people to help them internally develop more action items related to this matter. We've got a number of other employers that this is something that they're dealing with on a regular basis, and so they are internally doing that. So again, I agree with you completely. We are looking to continue to add action points to this and not just have a statement.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, this was a long time ago, I think 1986, 1987, something like that. I was tasked with putting together an exhibit for a medical trade show in Anaheim from Marshfield. And basically, we worked for, I think, 6 months getting ready for that trade show. And we had special photography done for the backdrop of the display. And also we had about $10,000 worth of brochures printed up. That was paid for by the clinic, if I recall. And I collaborated freely with the clinic's director of communications at that time. I worked with the leadership of the clinic at that time. And one thing they wanted to be absolutely certain of was that everything we showed to the people in California about Marshfield showed that we were a community that accepted and participated with minorities and other nationalities. And we did that with having pictures. I mean, one picture that sticks in the back of my mind, and Scott, I'm sure if you dig it up, you can dig it up if you find it. There's a picture of two little girls playing on a sidewalk in a fall scene on the street in Marshfield, and they're both of different nationalities. That said so. The lesson I learned was don't say it, show it. Mm-hmm. Michelle just brought up that on your website, you didn't have anything about the cultural fair. For God's sake, show it if you really want to do it. This statement, I feel almost embarrassed by this statement to think that this little statement is going to make some kind of a difference in recruiting people to Marshfield. No, we gotta do what we did back. Go back to the future if you want. Okay, we gotta basically show the people who we are. And by the way, the clinic is one of the greatest places of diversity in all of Marshfield. You go out to that place and sometimes you think you're at a little United Nations. And I say that in the absolute best context. I really enjoy it. But the point is, we've got to change our advertising material. And the other thing we need to do when we want to recruit people to come to Marshfield, we got to go where they are. We can't recruit different minorities, different nationalities from lily white central Wisconsin. We've got to go to the place where the nationalities are looking for jobs, and we've got to convince them that this is a place that they live. And we say, here's a brochure. Take a look at what we do. Take a look. Here's a profile of our community. And if those nationalities are on there, and if it shows the diversity, they're going to know that that's what we're doing. I'm just sort of flabbergasted by I think WMC thinking that everybody passing a resolution to adopt this statement would be somehow or another a magic bullet to bring people to Marshfield. I think that's just silly. Anyway, That's my opinion on it, and I hope I've been able to add something to your abilities.
Mr. Witzel.
Thank you. Is this statement meant to correct a problem that we have or to show that we don't have a problem?
This is not a statement meant to correct a problem. This is meant to be a promotional piece, a proactive piece to indicate that we are a welcoming community and to help start that process. Ed, like you had mentioned, the reliance isn't just on a statement. The statement is just a starting point. You've got to have something. Then you've got to develop the action items to go with the statement. And
when you say that, it makes it sound like we do have a problem, because you're saying the statement is the beginning, the action to continue on, but you said there isn't a problem. And the concern that I have is the way the public is going to view this. We adopted a statement because we're trying to cover up something that's an issue, and that's what Mr. Wagner had said a couple of months ago when this first came up. Do we have an issue? Well, then let's put a statement out there that says, really, we don't have an issue. If we're putting a statement out there and we don't have an issue, then it makes it seem like we're covering up an issue. And if that's not the issue, I don't really understand. Who drafted this particular statement, if I may ask?
The board of directors of the Marshfield Area Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Okay, so it's a Chamber of Commerce statement.
Correct.
Completely designed all on your own.
Correct.
Okay, and that's why then when we're looking at it in our packet here, it has the Chamber's information on the top.
It's our statement,
Yep,
yes.
okay. And so the statement exists regardless of what happens with this discussion today, and the statement already exists at the UW. The UW has signed on to it, and they have it up on their wall. I'm going to go back again where you're saying we don't have an issue, but yet the email we received from Pat Board here kind of expresses that we do have an issue. So I guess I'm not really certain. His comment here, working to correct that basic unfairness, right, in his email here shows that he has a perceived concern. So I'm not really certain.
They do. The employers do have a concern because they're trying to attract talent to meet their needs as an employer. And their ability to be able to attract talent, they are recruiting, particularly some of our major employers, the health system in particular, Prevention Genetics is another one in particular. They are recruiting internationally. And so to answer your question, Tom, no, we don't really have an issue. The issue would be we're not proactively promoting that. That's what I'm saying is with the start of a statement, we need to be more proactive in promoting this as we're undertaking talent recruitment efforts. So it's much like I mentioned, as a community doing economic development, you promote what attributes and incentives you have as a community for economic development. The same thing has to be done for talent recruitment. You have to push your positives out there and let people know that you have it. If you don't do that, they don't know that that even exists.
Mr. Butke?
Thank you. I got a suggestion, guys, how you can get me to vote for it. If we could delay this, just from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound real positive, but I don't know that for a fact. Come back with an action plan, Scott, like you talked about. What are people going to do in business? What is the plan to go with this statement? I'll vote for it then. But just to make the statement, you say that it's the start. I want to see more of it, what you plan, and I'm going to commend Michelle. I mean, I know that definitely is. Not that there's not other places that are good. That's, like I said earlier, that's a great story, with the Hispanic people, and helping them. That's great. But Scott, if you could come back with some action plan at another meeting, I'll vote for it.
Okay.
Any other comments? I'll just comment that I'm hearing that we need to have an action plan, but speaking in public is an action. And if you're not willing to publicly welcome people to the community, I question your sincerity in being a welcoming community. Mr. Bucky has a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I gotta take exception to that, Nick. There is nothing behind this other than getting some action that people can buy into. When you say you didn't trust that I didn't have it, that's baloney.
Is there any further discussion or action to be taken?
All right, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Scott. Michelle. Item N is a request to consider petition of annexation of territory owned by William and Barbara Luder and R&PK Properties LLC. The territory in question, which includes portions of the adjacent right-of-way, is located within the town of McMillan, north of the Wood Marathon County line at 1500 and 1502 West McMillan Street and Veterans Parkway, frontage road. Presented by Steve Wiley, city planner. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. So as mentioned, this is a request to consider an annexation petition. The two parcels in question are currently in the town of McMillan, and they are kind of an island right now. So this would be a nice opportunity to clean that up. They are completely surrounded by city or properties that have since annexed into the city. So a petition was filed with city staff some time ago. All of the property owners have signed on. The two parcels are currently vacant at this point. City policy sets the annexation fee. And so for vacant parcels, the fee is either 5 years worth of taxes due to the town or $800, whichever is less. In this case, it's $800. We estimate the taxes due to be about $915.20. And we are working through with finance that, the city's part of it. We have collected the required fees from the applicant, and the applicant has also submitted the application materials. The State Department of Administration is considering this request. And with that, the next step on our end would be for you to refer this to Plan Commission for review and to set the permanent zoning. And that's what we're requesting at this point.
Okay, the recommended action is to refer the annexation request to the Plan Commission for review and recommendation and to determine zoning classification. Mr. Wagner, you have a motion. Okay, and a second from Mr. Witzel. Is there any discussion or questions for Stephen? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes.
And that motion carries. Item O is a request to appoint Stephen Steingraber of 1208 East 6th Street to the Fire and Police Commission and to complete a vacant term ending in 2024. Mr. Steingraber's letter of interest is included in the file that in your packet. He has a background and experience in both law enforcement and firefighting and is currently employed by rail transport. No action at this time unless the rules are suspended. Final action will be on the February 8th meeting. Item P is suggested items for future agendas. Any items for future agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Witzel.
Sorry, back on your last item that you brought up, item O.
Yes.
I just lost what I was going to say. I guess I was curious if Mr. Steingraber was given the opportunity to come and address or introduce himself today, or if he wasn't aware that this was happening.
Yes, he is aware that this is happening. I gave him the option to come.
Okay.
I told him it was not required.
Okay. I just want to comment that I know Steve. I worked with Steve on the police auxiliary. I know that there's some concern. There has been expressed maybe in comments that were made today, some concern about making sure that the leadership of these entities, specifically members of the Police and Fire Commission, don't have direct ties, past or present. And I know that Mr. Steingraber does have some experience in both these areas, but I believe that the experience that he's had is far enough away from Marshfield that it would not be an issue. And I do have a great deal of respect for him, having worked with him police auxiliary level. So that's all I'm going to say, and we'll wait until next week or next meeting to find out what happens.
Mr. Fisher?
Could you just request, I always like it when they can come and introduce themselves. So could you please request his attendance at the next meeting?
Okay.
So he could at least introduce himself. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item P, suggested items for future agendas. Anything? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Witzel, second by Mr. Varsho. All those in, please vote.
Yeah.
And Mr. Handler? We're adjourned.
I got you, Deb. I got you back.